All right, everybody, episode 4. We made it. We made it to episode 4. Um, the 4 more years. Is that what they say? Four
Yeah.
more years. Okay. Um, this one is called Share Necessities, and we've talked a lot about creating content on Tiled from different design tools. We've talked about Builder 2.0. Now we want to get into after you hit send and kind of how you're going about it, how some of our customers, like our good friend Chris Martinez here, are going about it. So just getting into using Tiled from a distribution sense, sending a link, how you're creating links, how you're sharing them, and then also the analytics that come along with that and how it's impacting, how you're designing, creating, and interpreting, the impact of your content. So I will digress. I know the vibes are high. Hopefully that's coming across. But super excited and grateful for Chris Martinez from our friends at KW Landscape Architects to join us today.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Sean. I'm extremely honored and excited about sharing what we've built, but also excited to give y'all, Tiled, the platform, your flowers as well. When we were looking for a solution, this stood out from the rest. And so if you're not using Tiled right now and you're vetting it out and you're looking for it, trust me, go test it out, get on a free trial, do something to go explore and create something that will dynamically change your firm or your company.
Oh, we love that. We love a true testimonial right here live direct from Tap In episode 4.
You heard it here
That's it.
first.
I think the episode's over. I think Chris just said it all. He's like,
We
listen,
got
you need it.
wrapped.
Go get it.
So
Done.
yeah, thank you, Chris, for coming. Thank you for that glowing testimonial. I'm sure our sales team is gonna love that. But yeah, Chris Martinez here, KW Landscape Architects out of San Antonio, Texas. The general sense is your distribution strategy is helping you compete nationally against firms that are 4 to 5 times your size. Tell us a little bit about your role as the director of marketing and kind of what that looks like for you on a day-to-day.
Sure. Yeah, so KW Landscape Architects was started in Houston back in 1991, and now have been in Houston, over 30 years, almost 35 years now. Started our San Antonio office, started Austin a few years ago, and so we've become this Texas regional landscape architect to be chosen for projects primarily in the private sector. So we work a lot with residential builders, whether it's single-family communities, building a amenity area for that community, or it's a multifamily project. So it's apartments, it's high-rise towers in downtown, it's a mixed-use development, so we're retail, office, and different and apartments, living, everything kind of comes together in one place. We've been designing quite a few of those over the years as well, and what we have found is that there's a lot of people who are developing these projects, a lot of companies, a lot of developers, a lot of the money, investments, if you will, is coming outside of Texas, right? It's coming in from the East Coast, it's coming in from the West Coast, some of it's coming from the Midwest. And what we found is if we're going to compete to be the best landscape architecture firm that we can, we need to figure out a way to get in front of them in a new, exciting way. And that really started back in 2020. One of our founding partners who started the firm back in 1991 retired amidst COVID and the pandemic and everything that was happening in those days. But he retired. So a new partner was promoted who was younger. He's been with the firm his whole career. He's now going on 20 years with the firm starting next year. And he was promoted to partner. And that changed the trajectory of our firm in a real way because he wanted new energy, he wanted a new style, he wanted a new brand. And so we rebranded in 2021, went from kind of old colors, old character, cartoonish style logo to a much more fresh design. And with that became a new website, and we built a marketing team. I got hired in 2022. And my vision with the marketing team was to build a marketing team that was like an internal creative agency. Somebody who can create and envision like you would pay for somebody as a third party. And so we have a storyteller on staff who is an incredible writer. We have a graphic designer who did layouts with a magazine out of Houston. And so her layout skills, her design skills are incredible. And then we hired an in-house photographer, videographer. A friend of mine that I knew that ran his own agency for a while And so just incredible talent pool within the marketing team that we built, and it allowed us to create some amazing things. And this platform, Tiled, was one of those solutions. And what we were looking for is how do we stand out from other landscape architects around the world when maybe we don't have as much of the portfolio as they do. Maybe we haven't worked on the 5-star resorts that they have. Maybe we don't have the assets yet, but how can we present ourselves in saying we have everything we can to do those projects? And that's how we kind of came across Tiled. We needed an innovative platform to get that across, which we found it. So it's been great.
Yeah. Sounds like, too, as you talk about kind of investment coming from all over. I mean, I know, Sean, you're over there in San Diego, but in Texas, multi-use is everywhere. I mean, there's apartments on top of every store and retail space that you can go to. And so hearing you say, like, that's kind of your bread and butter makes a lot of sense. And so hearing that you're getting a lot of investment from other parts of the country, you can't always be in that room. And so definitely not just a differentiator, but also sounds like the why was also kind of logistics. How do you get there with a small team without having to fly all over the country, all the time to build your projects and get real world response? And I think that's an interesting question too to kind of lead off of is I think too by investing in a platform that kind of meets them where they are, it also kind of bridges a different kind of trust factor and starting and kind of budding a new relationship with someone that you're going to be working with for quite some time. These projects aren't quick turns, right?
That's right. Yeah. So when you're starting a project, it's almost like starting a relationship, right? For the next 3 to 5 years, sometimes even longer, if it's a multi-phased development project, you might be working with them for the next decade. And so you're wanting to see, can I work with them? Are they able to handle this workload? Are they innovative enough to create solutions for our project? And it gave us a chance to be everywhere without having to be everywhere, like you said, Jess. I think that's a great way to put it, because even though we're only in Texas, we're kind of changing our narrative to be a Texas firm that can work on anything to a Texas firm, Texas roots with national presence is kind of how we're phrasing it now. And that's our marketing angle. And that's allowed us to have great conversations and help people understand while we are based in Texas, we can compete with people in California, we can compete with people in New York, and our design expertise can be world renowned if we're given the opportunity.
Yeah, it sounds like it's just more like a translation problem. It wasn't really that you couldn't do it. You just needed to be able to get that across to have some other people have some conviction and trust in you.
That's right.
Very cool. Do you want to jump into the micro app now, Sean? Do you think that's something we can get into?
Yeah, I wonder, like, as a, not a segue, but, as we're talking about kind of what led you to look into Tiled and, obviously differentiating, trying to compete with maybe the big fish, like you said, is one thing. But, outside of just that at kind of face value, what in the PowerPoints or the PDFs that you were previously using, like, was not working? What was kind of a bottleneck?
Great question, Sean. I think what we have found is we were great at laying out and we were great at creating, and our graphic designer on staff was incredible at creating book related or print material. And that doesn't always translate in an in-person presentation. It doesn't always translate in allowing the conversation to be natural and allowing the conversation to be a little bit more relational, like I was mentioning earlier. And so those PowerPoints, those PDFs that we were creating, I know, Jess, you've alluded to it on previous episodes, the deck of cards, right? You have to filter through it.
Okay,
and you
Chris.
can't,
With the
you
reference.
can't go out and skip ahead, right? And that was our biggest thing. That was our biggest issue, is that we were trying to create a relationship, but it felt forced. We were trying to build trust, but we weren't allowed to build it as fast as we wanted to. It took a long time to get there. And sometimes the meat of those presentations is in the middle of it, right? You get through your company intro and you get through who you are and what you do. And then finally you get to the part where a lot of the people in the room care about who you are and why we want to pick you. And we found that if that conversation starts maybe in the first 2 or 3 minutes, because we can skip ahead with this organic led micro app, micro site, it allows us to do something that everybody's always wanted, but nobody had language for. And so, Sean, to answer your question, what we found is that those just weren't working. And they were static and they were flat. And as much as we tried to link pages on PDFs, as much as we tried to connect things in PowerPoint, it didn't have the same feel that we wanted it to feel, a modern reintroduction of the company.
Amazing.
Yeah, it sounds cool too. Like what you're making is, you're building an environment in these projects too. And so when you're talking about, presenting something that's flat, even when you're there in person, I can see how that could be hard to translate to something that's more visceral, something that you touch and experience in your actual projects. That disconnect sounds like a hard bridge to gap when you're just dealing with a flat kind of representation of your work.
Absolutely. And for what we do, right, we're doing landscape architecture. So we're designing outdoor spaces to bring people outside. Like that's our mission. Our whole mission is to bring people outside to enjoy nature. And so if they can't even experience that by looking at the photo or experiencing it by looking at a slide deck, it's really hard for them to get enthusiastic about it or to value the service the way that we feel like it should be valued. And that's where the conversation has changed, where we've given them an opportunity to say, oh my gosh, we need this now.
Very cool.
With that, Chris, I think you talked a little bit about like there's the introduction, the overview, there's kind of the meat where people get very interested.
Right.
Just from a where this is being used in your sales process. Like, is it kind of the top middle of funnel? Is it also being used in more of the, hey, we've got a strategic prospect, a top tier one that we're going after. We're going to use this in kind of the later finalist presentation type setting. Yeah, talk to me a little bit about that. Talk to us.
Sure.
Sorry. Not just me. Don't just talk to me about it.
There's a few different. Yeah, this is a 3-person podcast now, Sean. I mean, we got more than one on here.
I know I'm hogging all the questions. I'm like,
I just thought we were a big three for a second. I thought this was a big three situation.
A big three. You're taking it back. Like that was the best era of basketball. I know people. That's a hot take right there.
Are we taking our
I'm
talents
not
to
mad
South
at
Beach?
it. Do what you gotta do.
Not one, not two, not three, not four. But to answer your question, Sean, I think one thing that we found is that the dynamic ability of this platform allows you to use it in different ways. And so initially, we were trying to protect this platform to be in the room with it. So we were only using it in a shortlist interview. We were only using it in an in-person presentation with a client. And that provided great feedback. That provided excellent results and a wow factor. And we took that and then we started saying, okay, if we need to differentiate ourselves on paper or in a submission process without being in the room, how can we do that? And that's where we started using it as more of the initial submission of it as well. And so if we're pursuing a project and there's a submission, we can use this platform to submit for it. Which has changed the game as well. We've gotten tons of calls after we've done that. How did y'all do this? This is really cool. I've never seen anything like this. And it's given us a chance to start a conversation when most of the time they're just evaluating in their own room, which is really great. And then the last thing is presentations like at conferences or utilizing it in the middle of a lunch meeting on an iPad, right? And so it's not as formal. It's usually on the go or it's more quick. But it gives you a chance to navigate to exactly where you want to go and in the moment you need it most, which has been excellent for us.
I'm glad you bring up it's the iPad, kind of the tablet experience is one of my favorite. And it's also just, I think people don't think too much about that. Yeah, okay, I could pull it up on iPad, but how's it actually going to look? Save it offline so your videos are running smoothly, or even the mobile side of things if you have it on your phone and you're talking to someone. But I think as you're talking about relationship building and trying to be conversational and meet people where they are, like having that placemat, if you will, on an iPad, get it in their hands, allow them to drive it, is just something that it's always exciting to see firsthand.
It is. And shout out to Steve Jobs for changing the game in 2007 with the iPhone. Like, if that wasn't invented, I don't know what the process looks like, because everything now, whether your PC or Mac or whatever, everything is so intuitive with your finger. Everything is so intuitive with the natural things that you're given. And so creating a platform that can build on that and not have a learning curve to it in terms of interacting with the platform is like the best of both worlds.
We're all looking to tap in, you know.
That's right.
That's right. That's a great tap in moment, Sean. It's right on time.
Well, yeah, no, thank you for laying the foundation of kind of how you're using it and kind of what the progression was like as far as like the application, the use cases, where you could see value in it. If you're able to, I mean, we'd love to have you walk us through one of your projects and
Sure.
kind of just give us the high level around, you know, kind of your favorite pieces of it. What led you to kind of lay it out in this way? You know, what's the most beneficial, what you're getting the most feedback on. Yeah, you know, anything that you're able to share with us there would be awesome.
Sure. Well, let me click on our on structure dashboard, and I'll go full screen here. This is what we call on structure, or our high rise tower tiled micro app. And so up front, the first thing is the video, right? The opportunity to utilize video. We had an in-house videographer who was able to edit a bunch of our footage, able to integrate design renderings, able to use drone. I mean, just able to create a dynamic home video, or, you know, hero video, if you will. And it allowed us to, as soon as we start the presentation, it just catches your eye. As soon as you start the presentation, you're pulled into our spaces that we've designed. And it just allows people to be already in mode, or in the zone of where this conversation will go, right? And what we're going to feature and what we're going to showcase. And so as we click over to the left, we built a really, really basic menu. We've actually used InDesign to build our platform, which I know Figma is your primary recommendation. And we're trying to dive more into that. But with our expertise, we were trying to get things going quickly. We decided to use a platform in InDesign to create the menu as easily as we could. And that allowed us to create this. And so it's pretty basic. We're using the carousel feature. We're using them even layered on this page to showcase, you know, a background image, but also some of the other things that they're utilized in these presentations, right? Where our offices are, our Texas roots, national presence, right? We've completed projects in 26 states, and then our basic services. So this slide gets used pretty quickly. Our leadership team, we revamped our leadership team starting in 2022, 2023. And so now, instead of introducing the firm as just the two partners, we're introducing experts in each area. And so it allowed us to kind of create almost a card format, and then you can click into it and have a pop-up, just who we are. So it allows a little bit more of an interactive experience in those conversations if people want to know which projects some of our team has worked on or where they went to school. You know, Cynthia has a degree in architecture as well as you, Jess, and I think y'all were there at the same time. And so you may have recognized her. Looks like y'all were on in the same class. And then she got her master's in landscape architecture from Harvard. And so she's exceptional, and you know, that always helps when we're selling amazing projects. But our next section that we like to go through is our approach, and this is just using the carousel as well, Sean. But the graphic ability from our design team and our marketing team is just taking this to the next level, where it's a ton of research in terms of data and the way we design projects, but it's also visually appealing because of the opportunity to use different options here. And then as we get into our portfolio, you know, one of the things that is very seen as well is that we're utilizing video. And so this preloads to a project, if you will. And so it's loading to that project, and it's giving you a chance to see it. But as you click into different projects, we have carousel images. This was an adaptive reuse project we did in San Antonio. It was an abandoned, you know, concrete buildings. And that's what it looks like today. So it's an amazing project to see full force. But we're able to also have pop-ups on here as well. And so if you want project details, you can get more information on projects, you can see that. And so if that's needed in the presentation, you can certainly utilize that. One of the other ones I'll click on is the St. Regis project. It's a high-rise tower in Houston. And so you're seeing, you know, a rendering image. So this is all 3D design from our team. And you get a chance to experience all the spaces, you know, intimately, right? And a chance to see the project. But we went a little bit deeper. We chose to also show what materials we used. on the project. And so now, instead of just showing you, hey, here's the finished product, here's also some really specific details of that project. I mean, down to the material palette and even the plant palette, right? Which plants that we utilize for those projects. And it's just been an incredible tool for us, Sean, as we navigated these conversations. It's been fantastic.
Love it. I mean, as you're digging in here, I don't know if you remember how long your PDFs were that you were sending before, but as we look at this, there's a ton packed in here, and it's at a point where you've broken it down into kind of the core sections, the core chapters, and you can go get as much information as you want, but you don't have to go through everything like we're all used to,
That's right.
going page by page. So I think that, along with, you said you're trying to get people outside. You're putting people outside here with these renderings, these visuals, and it's awesome work from you and the team, man.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a lot of fun. And our team has, our landscape architecture team has just been excited. The more that we utilize it, the more they dream up of new ideas, the more they dream up of what's possible, and it gives us a chance to really go in depth in a lot of ways. And so it's created this synergy and this collaboration between our teams to say, oh, we need to go deeper. We need to provide some more research. So let's create a slide for even how you plant on a vertical residential project, right? Like super detailed and technical, but it gives them a chance to speak to this in a presentation.
Yeah, I think there's certainly like the visual approach too. And I'm looking at this, and I think there's obviously some strategy here in terms of how you're providing and showing your content. Like what's changed. And we can definitely see how you changed your presentation from maybe 2 years ago to now. Like Sean said, this would have been 100 plus PowerPoint you're going through, and you just kind of hope they stick around. But
right.
I guess I'm curious from like a content perspective, what kind of shift does it take to go from a slide kind of format to this kind of interactive approach where you're splitting things up in a more kind of bite-sized way?
It's been great. Our team, it was a little bit of a training or a little bit of a trial and error with our team, right? They had to get used to, oh, I don't need to go button by button. I don't need to go section by section. I can actually go where I need to go, right? And so if we know, hey, we only have 30 minutes in this interview, don't even waste time with things that client or that type of project doesn't care about. Jump into what they actually care about. And it's there if they ask about it in the Q&A section, or it's there if they're curious about it, but don't feel the need to go through each one. And it actually creates a chance for you to relate to people in a much more natural way versus, we've all been in the room in a presentation, and whether it was in college or something else, where somebody will ask a question and you're like, just wait, we're almost there. We have two slides left and we'll answer that question, right? Like we've all been there, whether we've asked the question or we're presenting. And this gives you a chance to say, you know what, I'm really glad that you asked that question. Why don't we dive into that? Let's jump into that now. And it gives you a chance to click in very specific, why should we pick you for Texas, right? Well, our Texas expertise in these areas is why. And it gives you a chance to speak to that, when we're in New York or when we're in California and they want to know, what do you really know about Texas? And so it gives us a chance to dive into that.
Chris, you're logged into Tile, kind of in presentation mode, walking us through this. But
yes,
one of the reasons, and you touched on this a little bit as well, but that customers are coming to us is, hey, we need something that is portable. We need something that is flexible. And so, sharing this as a link or a URL as opposed to a file, obviously you don't have to worry about like uploaded PowerPoint from a file size standpoint, sending it through WeTransfer or something like that. But just kind of talk me through like how you're approaching distribution. I think I've heard you say before, yeah, we'll send this sometimes ahead of time and link them to it or as a leave behind. But, from a portability standpoint, how has that been helpful?
Sure. It's been fantastic. We've had a chance to send this out directly to clients, and whether it's in an interview or it's for a specific project, or maybe it's a follow-up. It's like, hey, we met with you. It was so great. Here's that presentation we gave. If you want to click through it yourself, right? And it's allowed us to actually see the analytics side of the platform, which, in my opinion, is one of the best, right? It gives you a chance to really see what's important. right? And so we've dove into this specifically in terms of how we curate the platform, how we curate the projects, right? And so it gives us a chance to see how we're using the space and what's important. And I'll just go to engagement on that platform on the project we just did, and the views. And so clearly the homepage view is always top, right? But a couple of the projects you can see specifically what matters most in these presentations, right? What matters most to people, and it's not in order. And so it's given us a chance to really curate it in a beautiful way.
Yeah, I'm curious too, like as you're iterating and building more of these dashboards, are you making specific changes kind of based on what you're learning from the engagement data?
Sure. Yes. No, we absolutely are. So if there's a project on here, that really hasn't been viewed at all, right? So some of these projects that haven't been clicked on, or some of these overlays that haven't been clicked on, it's a really good example of, okay, well, this may matter to us, but it doesn't matter to our end decision maker. And a phrase that I like to use internally is that, while this is all about us, right? It's all about us. It's actually not for us. It's actually not for us. And so it's all about who we are and what we can provide in our projects, but it's actually for the decision maker to feel comfortable in choosing us. And so we have to change our perspective to, it could be all about you, sure, but you got to remember it's not for you, it's for other people. And when you make that shift, you begin to say, okay, what really is important to that person, and you can target a certain decision maker or persona or market, and you can really get into the mind and psychology of it all. And it's an amazing thing as that starts to snowball.
Yeah, it is. And we could spend a lot of time on that alone. I think the psychology of this, I think, really makes a lot of sense. I mean, most conversations don't happen in the same order, so your presentation's doing the same thing. It just doesn't make as much sense. You want to be able to jump
That's
around.
right. That's right. And this is, we've been able to tailor it to different markets, right? So this is our single family presentation that we've built. And so the feel of this is different, right? It's a much more family. You can see homes in the background. You're looking at amenity spaces and entry signs as you pull into neighborhoods. And so we're getting a chance to curate it now to even the decision makers and the focuses, right, that they have in building projects. And so it's just given us a whole different world of hyper targeting our clients, and it's given us to hit the nail on the head every time we get a chance to present.
I think it's really interesting too here. You're showing another example, right? But it's obviously a similar template, but doesn't feel like that at all just because you've been able to change and really target the assets. I think that's a really interesting approach, especially as you're using InDesign. I mean, was that strategic? Is that just about bandwidth? Tell me a little bit about how you landed on this kind of layout and maybe why it's working for you.
Sure. Yeah. So this is definitely bandwidth, but also a lot of our end developers or clients are not using the same, or they're not building the same product type, and their needs are different, and their cares are different, and what's important to them is different. And so it gives us a chance to speak their language and not cloud it with other things. And so, for example, our approach section, right? It's very similar. It starts with our mission, starts with the third space, being outdoors, but then it goes into what makes a great neighborhood. And so this, on the other deck, talks about what makes a great vertical project. And so it's hyper tailored in terms of how we speak their language and what's important to them, as well as themes, right? Uptrending themes in this space or in this development market, where we can educate them, based on research or based on conferences we've been to. And then it starts to build a thought leadership perspective of, okay, I want to go with these people because they know what they're doing, their designs are great, but they also know how to take us to the future as well in our projects.
Yeah, it sounds too. You were talking a little bit about your bios and how you moved from presenting as just a co-partnership to a subject matter expert kind of presentation of that. And it sounds too like you're using the same approach in these templates. You're trying to be the subject matter expert of both vertical high-rise multi-use as well as single family. And so that sounds like a real organizational shift too, kind of what you mentioned with this new partner taking the lead. that overall you want more transparency. You want to make sure that it's clear that you have the strategy and experience shown all across the board, not just from your projects, but from your people.
Right.
And I think that's a really clear delineation that we're seeing here. I can see a lot of trust kind of factors that are being involved. But you don't necessarily need to be in the room. I know this group, I'm talking to you here, but this group feels very present. You can feel a lot of fingerprints on this in a good way.
Yes, and for me, right, I'll speak for myself. I don't get a chance to be in the room for our interviews for projects, right? They want to speak to the subject matter experts. They want to speak to the architects. And while I, would love to be in the room and be a part of that conversation, there's a lot of times where I'm sitting at my desk, but I get a chance to be in the space because I built it, and I get a chance to present us in a new way. And everybody on this team has built and added pieces to this or their expertise, and so everybody's in the room now, like you said, because it's more dynamic and it's not focused on one or two people.
Yeah. From last question, kind of on the analytics side, is there any examples of any engagement patterns that really surprised you as you moved to this kind of approach?
I would say the biggest thing for me has been how drastic the shift was from tab to tab and going from the homepage straight into our portfolio, right? It was pretty interesting to see how the conversation can go from 0 to 100 really quickly, or it can really build up from time to time. And so it gives you a chance to see what's important to certain people or to certain developers, but also how do you create something that can be used that way. And so as we reiterate and update this as we go forward, what we're looking into is how to create a more dynamic menu, right? Where it's not a static image, but it's more built in and animated as well. So we're continuing to innovate and iterate, and we're trying to do the best we can with that. But that would be the biggest thing I would say, Jess, is kind of how it's formed and the order we go of things. So even this project list is alphabetical order, but some of the other presentations we've created for a specific project we're trying to win, the most important projects are at the top, because the data tells us people are naturally going to click an order. People are creatures of habit, and we see a menu and we want to click at the top one, right? Because that would be the most important. And so it's allowed us to say, you know what, we're going to buck the norm, and we are going to not do it in alphabetical order. And as much as my marketer brain cringes when I see it in not alphabetical order, it's given us a chance to be top of mind with the best projects.
Yeah, some A/B testing there. That's interesting too. I'm curious,
Yes.
I hear you say, some people jump straight to our portfolio and some people want to know more about us. And I think that speaks too about building that relationship and where you are in that journey with that client or potential prospect. If you're talking to someone who you need to validate first, it makes total sense that they would want to see your projects and then want to learn about you, right? They want to make sure that, you're qualified to be in the room first, as opposed
That's
to
right.
someone that maybe you have a warmer connection or you've already built a project with. They know what you built. Let's hear about you. Let's hear
That's
about
right.
the people that we're going to be working with for the next few years.
That's right.
Very cool. I really appreciate you going through this. I mean, Sean,
Yeah, you're welcome.
You have any more questions on this? I think
I was going to say, we obviously want to hear what's next and kind of what you're thinking about and how we can help you with that, But I think as you were getting into your engagement and analytics dashboard, it's seeing you as like pretty much the only user in the account or like the lead
That's
user.
right.
I know that we've got some customers who, hey, they bring all of their reps into Tiled as users, and you've got kind of all the engagement and adoption metrics that you have on who's actually using the platform, all of that. And then like this, where you're kind of the main lead on the account, and then you just create links and share it to folks, and they pull it up in the browser, go into presentation mode, and hopefully that's pretty fluid. But I'm just curious, from that workflow, handing off a link to them, and then also the engagement side of things, where all of those views and notifications and metrics, those all go to you, right? Instead of those users specifically. So has that been overwhelming? Has that been helpful? As far as kind of a different flow or approach to things?
I would say it's been really helpful because as kind of the main person developing the platform and creating the platform, I'm the most frequent user or the person logged in the most. And so seeing that data in real time every day and seeing it come in and when somebody clicks on it, getting an email, like it's allowed me to know, okay, I need to go check that out. I need to reference it, and I need to be the voice that also communicates it to our leadership team, what that means and how we change things moving forward. And so I would say, Sean, it's actually been a benefit to keep it into one person because it allows one point of contact and one source of truth versus it being 3 or 4 or 5 people analyzing the data and figuring it out, but also confusing the data and wanting to suggest changes that maybe wouldn't be correct.
It makes sense. I was actually making a reference to all the Lakers championship trophies and comparing KW's accolades and SMPS award, innovation awards, and some of the things that you guys have been racking up lately. And obviously Tiled is only a piece of that. You're obviously doing a ton to drive, the brand and the messaging there, and building these meaningful relationships. But as we look forward, what are your plans? What's next for you? What can we help with? Where are you like, hey, it would be as we're thinking about using this as a new communication platform, and a new way to engage folks. Like what's top of mind for you?
Yeah, and I will say, back to the award, that was, I mentioned how I wanted to build the team, right? The strategy of building the internal agency, a modern marketing team. And that was honestly the most satisfactory or, kind of stamp that design would work or that intent would work. And now I sit on a national board for research with that same organization. And we just developed our first emerging trend report that launched in August as well. And with that report, we saw that data was showing and the research was showing how new roles that were coming on board to architecture, engineering, and construction firms. And several of those roles would be more digitally related, right? SEO people. How do you have people who really know how to do something with analytics? Some people even had psychologists on staff, which was really interesting to see the differentiators and people building their team uniquely. So I will say, Sean, as we build things moving forward, it's being thoughtful in seeing what is coming and what the future of this industry holds. Specifically with Tiled, I want to see this platform not only used externally in terms of presenting ourselves to clients or to partners, we actually want to start utilizing this internally as well. And so we want to start building some of our onboarding process into a Tiled experience where a new staff member, a new team member gets a chance to experience the company and reference it and go back to it. And that would be it would give us two things. One, it would give us a chance to get all of our onboarding into one place, which is every company's dream. But two, it would give us a chance to have the analytics tied to it and say what's really important to these employees. Is it the benefits? Is it our culture? Is it the projects that we've worked on? What is it that draws people to us, and how can we build on that? And then what is it that isn't important that we can either let it go or we can improve it? And I think that is going to be so beneficial to how we shape the company moving forward.
You're a pro. I mean,
yes. Amazing. Well, Jess, you have any last questions?
I don't have anything. You have
Chris
done
just dropped the mic.
Fantastic. But wow, thank you for going through those. I think even just seeing the same template used for two different use cases, seeing the similarities and the differences, you're kind of A/B testing, if you will. Some people want to see the most prominent buildings, prominent projects up front. Some of them are going alphabetically, and I'm sure there's strategy behind that too that we just don't have time to get into. But it's very clear that your approach is incredibly thoughtful, both in how your organization's being built and how you built out your team and how you're distributing your micro apps and how you're iterating and building off of those with the impact and the engagement that you're seeing. So just, hats off to you. You're very much, mimic the sentiment of the S&P Award, an innovator in the space and someone to keep tabs on it as we move forward. Just Really love what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jess. That means the world to me as we build and as we move forward and as we start to create new things. It gives us a chance to improve. And, as athletes and, growing up, right, there's always a chance to get better. And that's kind of my approach with everything is I want to get better. And I know that the success we've had has been incredible. I know it's been extremely enjoyable and satisfying, but also you got to repeat, right? And you got to three-peat, and you gotta get a chance to win and win at a high level. And that's the competitor in me that won't die, no matter how old I get or how out of shape I may be at times. I will compete no matter what, whether it's on the court or it's in the boardroom. I'm going to try to compete.
Well, it's clear you're a top contender. I'd draft you. I'd put you on my team.
I mean, I might argue that Chris is actually the Phil Jackson, right? He's like, I can't always be in the room, but I'm going to make sure everyone is well prepared and equipped to do what
That's
they
right.
need to.
Well, you're saying the dashboards are like the triangle, and they all have their own unique piece, and everybody gets their shine. And yeah, it's a great way to look at it, Sean.
Great, best swagger, honestly, at the league too.
Well, I appreciate you both. Thank you. And it sounds like this might not be our last conversation. So I'm excited for what this continues to unfold to. And you can tap me in whenever you need me.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Tap, tap. Chris, thanks so much,
Thanks,
man.
guys.
Have a great weekend.
Bye. You too. Bye.
Thanks.
All right.
Okay, so we're going in distribution toolkit.
Yeah, I think we talked a lot about toolkits, UI toolkits, how we approach design in different ways. And I think distribution is certainly the next aspect of that. It's not one thing. Chris touched on that quite a bit, and I think it's really important to match the method to the goal. And so there's a couple ways that we're going to get into that. I think there's three kind of core distribution modes that we're talking about here, which is presentation mode, which Chris really hit on too, and presenting live or in person or even virtually, but the author or the representative driving the ship. There's also link sharing, so a personalized, trackable link to see engagement specific to that individual. And then the third being embed or an integrated kind of mode, which would be email, websites, embedding into a platform, that kind of thing. So we'll kind of hit on those three. Some of those are a little bit, have some subcategories within, but we'll try to keep it brief, keep it tight.
Let's do it. So, big three. We're back to the big threes. So obviously the first is the most straightforward, which is just presentation mode, kind of the viewer. And so as we click into, just like Chris did, we pull it up from the thumbnail in the library, we jump into full screen mode, and then now this is where, if you're a tiled user, you're coming in, you're presenting from here. I'm on my laptop on Google Chrome, so it's through the web. You're logging in. As we talked a little bit about, though, the iPad application, you're able to pull this up and really have it in presentation mode right in your hands or to get in somebody else's hands as well. So that's really number one, right? The other is, as we move on down the list, the share flow side of things. So as you go to share a project on Tiled, you've got a couple different options. The public share is going to be more of your generic link. Hey, we want to create this and put it on LinkedIn. Or, if we want to just send a generic link because we're presenting to Amazon, create a generic link. The other would be more of a one-to-one or creating unique links side of things, right? If there's a specific stakeholder, specific prospect or customer, we can actually enter in their name or their information here and create a unique tracking link to start generating those analytics, seeing how often they're viewing it, and those types of things. And so, again, this is great beforehand, maybe as a pre-read, obviously as a leave behind afterwards as well, too. The other option from a kind of a linking standpoint is what we call a sub-tag or a substitution tag. Think of this more on the marketing campaign side. So if you were going to use Tiled for an ESG report, an end-of-year review, right, anything like that, you then have the ability to tie into your email sending or your marketing automation platforms. And all of these links are unique to then call on, if you have a list of 1,000 people in HubSpot, we're calling on all of those unique viewers' information and bringing that into the tiled analytics as well too. So we only have 4 tools listed here, but we've got customers who are using Salesforce, Marketo. It's all just a matter of formatting to get it right. That's kind of the last on the linking side of things. And then we get into more of the embedded content. So maybe we want to embed this onto the website. Under the public share, you'll see that there's an option for embed, and we're just serving up the iframe or the embed script for you to put wherever you'd like. So that can be external on the web, that could be internal, and you're embedding it into SharePoint or any of your own intranet or internal tools as well. So those are the big 3. Jess, what am I missing?
What's a good use case for this one specifically? Like, why would I want to embed versus sending that directly, or even just making a general share link and just putting that on LinkedIn?
Yeah, some people like to embed for the sake of branding and domain control, just as far as kind of having their unique vanity URL or domain, and then the experience of the micro app loads up. That's one route. The other is maybe they just want it embedded in the site instead of having a, fill out this form and we'll email it to you. You can actually just nest it right in so someone can dig into the content right on the site. And then obviously internally, right, bringing it into SharePoint, more of a security type of thing where, hey, we want this to be gated only for our employees internally. So we're just going to put it behind a paywall, or, a security login gate, or some type of an intranet where people will only be able to access it if they're our employees.
Yeah. So designing within a website context and keeping that in mind kind of sounds like it could feel a little bit more natural. It doesn't feel like just dropped in. It feels more integrated into your site. And what that can do is potentially help with tracking engagement alongside your website analytics as well, and kind of seeing the differentiation between those two. I think also, one benefit I can think of too with embedding is that you're going to ensure some mobile responsiveness that matches to your site. And so when you click into that, it's still going to be the right screen size, in theory. Right.
Absolutely.
I think we can add one bonus, and this is more specific to tiled and more specific to our kind of builder and then our integration in Seismic. I think it's important just to touch on that for our viewers as well. Can you tell us a little bit about what Seismic is and maybe what the benefit is in that integration with tiled?
Yeah, I'm glad.
I know you're not Sterling, but let's pretend. Let's put our Sterling hat on. Shout out Sterling Franson.
Maybe Riverside will let me do the AI thing where I can turn into Sterling. Maybe I'll do that in editing. Yeah, obviously, you could, whether it was Seismic or SharePoint or any of the other, tools where folks are accessing content, you can create a link or an embed code and put it there. Now with Seismic, we have a phenomenal partnership and integration with them where we're an approved file type, which means that instead of just sending a link or creating an embed code, you have the ability to download the micro app file, and essentially you can upload that natively into Seismic, and then there's advantages where you can send it through LiveSend with their platform if that's where all your reps are sharing content. It ties into their analytics dashboard and how they're surfacing insights as well too. So yeah, that's another route is downloading the actual tiled file. So if you're a Seismic customer or you're looking into Seismic, we're more than happy to talk to you about that flow and partnership as well.
Yeah, and a little bit differentiating between what is technically, not to get too granular in our language, tiled standalone versus tiled in Seismic. And so if you're already a Seismic customer, it does live natively and is integrated within that sales enablement platform. And so your content can still live where your team already works, and is obviously has other enterprise advantages there as well. So just the last big 3+1 in that regard.
Big 3+1. The other thing I'll say is as you're creating links or you're bringing this content elsewhere, there's advantages to being a link, right? It's portable, it's helpful, like we talked about, it's easy to access. If you have a typo in something, you just fix it in tiled, hit publish, and then that link you already shared is updated.
There is an advantage to sending an individual link, especially when you're utilizing personalization.
Yeah.
And so that would be a differentiator too, from a general to a specific trackable URL.
Yeah, and maybe let's run that through real quick. So, for us at Tiled, we've got an asset that's who we are, what we do, right? Like Chris was talking about. But we also have personalization built in here as well. And so as we're looking to create a version or an instance of this for a given customer, if it's Amazon, for example, that we're going after, right? We can curate this and go into personalization mode. And, there's all of these elements that we can curate or adjust. But ultimately, when we do go to share, it's going to be unique to this version, right? So if I'm going after Amazon, or if they're my account, I'm going to get notified. I'm going to get all the analytics on this as well. But with that, you can also password protect it. So if it's, hey, this is specific, it's got sensitive data or sensitive info I'm sending to Amazon, then we want to make sure that they're the only ones with the password who can view it and who can access it.
Yeah, I think Chris said it best. Like, this is about us, but it's for them.
Yeah.
So to personalize for them is just another indicator of trust, another indicator that you've invested in their experience, and the ability to even just see that with that quick change there in the personalization viewer, you have what feels like another total different iteration of the same template approach. We've gone over different distribution modes now, and even some use cases of what that would be that seem very clear. But what do we do if it's kind of a hybrid approach? How do we match the distribution to the buyer journey? And Chris also hit on that, right? But some people with a colder kind of new introduction want to make sure that we can validate you by first seeing your portfolio. Others, when you're having more of just building on an existing relationship, just want to know more about you. And so, how do we tag these approaches to specific portions of that buyer journey?
I think it speaks to, and each team operates differently, but when I asked him the question around where does this fit in, right? Is this something where that they're most interested in, where you came from, who you've worked with, what your portfolio is, and it's top of funnel? Okay, great. Well, maybe this is something that you should share before a conversation, right? And create a link where they can, if they have time, they can go self kind of review and know what they're getting into. And then you're able to see, okay, did they even look at what we sent them, right? Leading into this, or if they didn't, you can probably assume you're starting from square one, right? And then getting into more of the relational, conversational side of things, having this pull up, and again, whether that's in presentation mode, whether you're in person, plugging into a projector, you're on Zoom or Riverside, shout out, like we are here, or if you're pulling this up on an iPad, right? That conversational view, kind of mid to late stage. And then obviously the leave behind and how you're sharing this after the fact. I feel like the puzzle pieces, the deck of cards can fit however you need it to, but ultimately we are well equipped, from top to kind of bottom of funnel.
Yeah. And I think as you see this, buyer cycles get longer, or relationships continue to build, and they do get longer for that reason, is you kind of touch on all of the above over time. And so, yes, there's some times where you want to actually build and learn information. And so when you're in early exploration, like you were saying, link sharing might be beneficial so that they can explore on their own and you can learn just a little bit more about them as they're learning about you. Having a more like mutual beneficial transaction there. And when you're in an active evaluation, perhaps presentation mode makes more sense because you are guiding the conversation. You're in that room with them either in person or virtually, and now you want to guide them on the journey. And like Chris said, if they have a specific question, we can jump to that and jump back. But ideally, you're kind of leading the show. And then more in a final decision, we got presentation mode as well because it's conversation led. That's the part where you're having like information spread both ways. You're having a conversation, what's important to you, what's important to me, and you're really starting to make that dynamic work.
I also think it's interesting too because it's not about us, right? It's not about what part of the funnel that we're equipping our customers for, but ultimately it's about how they're telling their story and how they're getting the narrative or the messaging that's most relevant to their prospects or customers in front of them, and arming their champions or their stakeholders and decision makers with the right information that they need to make a decision as well too. And so I feel like it kind of flows on both sides, where it's like we're meeting customers, where they want to be so that they can distribute these, but also at the end of the day, it's about the engagement from their side of the house, from their customers' side of the coin, if you will. And being able to have access to that, have visibility into that on, hey, are they looking at what we're expecting? And are they arming, their viewers with the information in the best way?
Yeah, I think too, as we talk about the framework, we kind of talk about internally here at Tiled, there's different entry points for different personas too, even within that same organization. And so I think also depending on the complexity of the sale, how much information and how many people are kind of decision makers for that can make for a kind of complex multi-stakeholder, multiple link scenario, which can be nice in one sense of personalizing by role. That could be cool. And the other part of that is too, again, what's important to those individuals. It's not one organization has one answer. And so I think one thing that people miss is you can send the same micro app with different entry points, and you can do that by sending it to specific pages to those specific links, which I think can be really interesting, especially if you're talking to an organization where maybe your CFO link opens to the ROI data first. Perhaps your CMO links to creative capabilities. The same content for the same organization, but for different individuals to tap in to what they are specifically interested in, and they, as a collective, now feel that you totally understand what they're looking for. The same content, different starting points based on what matters specifically to them.
Well, on that too, and just to kind of go through what to expect and where Tiled really shines or serves on the analytics front is, if I'm creating a link, and let's say Michael Scott, shout out Michael Scott at Dunder Mifflin, is my buyer, my stakeholder. I create a link for him, right? I can either send it directly through Tiled, or if I'm already drafting up an email in Salesforce, Gmail, Outlook, wherever you are, you can go ahead and ultimately Michael's viewing it, digging in about us, going through, oh, he wants to know about the team. He's digging into the proposal, right? As you share a link, it becomes almost like you're heat mapping, in a sense, analytics for how did they click through? Where did they spend the most time? Did they get to a certain section of this? And so as I close out of this and go back out to Tiled, in the engagement section, so your account admins, you're going to get this overall activity view that's going to show you, hey, which one of your reps or your Tiled users is using Tiled the most? Which micro apps or which projects are getting the most usage? And then over on the right, like what's the timeline news feed of activity, right? Who's presenting what? How are they going through it? And then you can dig in from there to see, oh, okay, well, for Sean's activity, he presented company proposal. He was just on the cover page, right? So keeping people honest as well, but also getting the insights for how are your presenters going through this? And then this same view dovetails into the recipients. How are they going through it, right? In the same way, time spent on page, what was kind of their path through the content? And it's been interesting to see how many even enterprise level customers where I talk about, hey, do you guys have analytics on the content you're sharing today? And they're like, yeah, we see if they click the email, we see if they click the PDF, and then it kind of trails off. Or, we have access to HubSpot or these other tools, but really we haven't really configured it or got the value of it. And so, even just implementing the simple share link, page views, time spent on page, like it might seem elementary or simple, but ultimately it's a big step in the right direction just to have that visibility.
Yeah, and two here, it's something to click on.
Tap into
is like you were talking about the journey mapping. Here we're not seeing as much, but we can see that number one there as the indicator of the first click. And so when there's multiple clicks on page, you can see that. I think that speaks to the mindset shift of building for the digital landscape. That's the difference between a linear design in PowerPoint where you're showing everything at once and a spatial design where you're trying to build in layers and have clickability. That is the reason, right? If you're having clickability, you can see that path, and it's like the cheat code when they click on exactly what you want them to click on, right? That's exactly what you're after. And as much of that data that you're seeing in that granular way, you're informing that decision as you go. And so you might not land on it the first time, but on the second or third iteration, you're getting close. And then you're getting them to a guided journey that you're kind of curating, and they have that flexibility to go in and out of. So I think that journey mapping is especially one of my favorites, and something I definitely think that is underutilized in today's kind of iteration of data.
For sure. And, I think about where our customers could be, I don't want to say doing things differently, but where there's opportunity for them to improve, and not even just our customers, but anyone who's sharing content digitally, right? It's like the one size fits all distribution, right? Where we're just going to have the same piece of content that we're going to share to everybody in the same way. And even Chris had those different versions that all, took the same type of look and feel, but the structure was different. Maybe it was condensed and didn't have everything in it. And being able to share those independently, have the analytics on those independently as well, just so that how they're performing versus each other. And then, not looking at the data, right? Chris is getting the notifications. He's tapping in. He's viewing, hey, they're presenting out in New York right now. How long did they spend in there? Did they get where we wanted them to? What parts of the portfolio were what projects, were most interesting? So, I think ignoring the analytics is also something where, if you're not sure how to interpret it, or if you have questions, you reach out to us and we'll help you on that front. But also just the when do we send it, right? Do we send it before? Do we send it after? Do we do both, right? What does that look like from a timing perspective? And even on that, we talked about this, Jess, sometimes I'll get notifications for someone who I talked to 2 or 3 years ago, and obviously they fell off my radar. Maybe they were closed lost in the CRM, but then I'm like, oh, that name rings a bell. Let me go dig in and see what they're looking at, and if it's worth me reaching out to and having some type of context around that outreach.
I also think too early is a thing too, right? You want to build rapport.
Yeah.
I don't think that this is a replacement for a conversation yet. Is it getting there? Probably, but not yet. Yeah. And what I mean by that is too, have you ever just gone to an e-commerce site, you're trying to buy something, and before you even know what they sell, they're asking you if you want 15% off? That pop-up drives me just up the wall. I don't even know what you have. I don't even know if I want it yet.
I'm not sure yet. And then if I decline and I'm like, okay, I want that 15, then nowhere to be found,
That's right. Sign up for text. That's the worst.
For sure.
That's how you start off a relationship on the wrong foot. And so making sure that this is an organic part of that conversation. It is building a relationship, and this is just one component of that. And then obviously waiting too late, the decision's made. You want to kind of hit a sweet spot that you normally would when you follow up with people. This could be a leave behind after the meeting or before. But make sure that they have the content too, and you're not kind of gatekeeping that.
Well, it does also make me think, just as we're talking about distribution and being, a new digital format or a way of engaging, with your audiences, there's the mobile side of things too that we haven't touched on. And so while this, this views more of the project or the micro app analytics, that's kind of overarching, not specifically how one person was going through it, but how everybody goes through it. And so, maybe there is a huge drop off like there is here on, views from the cover page or the main page to some of the other sections, having the ability to have that spelled out for you, where are people spending the most time. But then as I'm talking about mobile, the device usage, what was it? 40, you want to give the stat? What's the stat?
Sure. It's about 40 to 60% of content is consumed on mobile. And sometimes you just don't have control over that. Someone might be sitting at their desk and you would assume that they're going to open it there, but a lot of people are on the go and are working more virtually or are doing their own meetings. And so that micro app needs to be able to work on a phone. And if you haven't, at least considered that. It doesn't have to be mobile first, but, mobile consider it. You potentially lose half of your audience in that respect.
Yeah, and being able to understand that, hey, we sent it out, whether it was in a marketing email or whether it was direct to stakeholders and they're pulling it up on mobile, having that visibility just gives you more data, more food for thought.
Yeah. And then I think the last one that we would probably hit on is a follow-up strategy, and it kind of talks about that timing as well. You sent a link, fantastic. Did they open it? Yes. What did they click on? We find out. But when are you following up after that? I think analytics should inform your next move. And you also just can't rely on that being a substitute for just human interaction.
It's funny because I also, I've heard, hey, after you meet with somebody, don't send them the follow-up email right away or that afternoon. Not because you're going to seem too eager, but maybe they forget about you because they're moving on to their other tasks. And so if you wait till the next day, then you hit them with that and they're like, oh yeah, let me dig in, let me tap in, right? So not saying that that is the way or the only way, but especially when you're talking about sharing content and, giving them the ability to consume what's most relevant to them on their own time and then being informed on when that does or does not happen, I think something to take into account.
Yeah. And I think all of these strategies and ideas work independently. But what I want to kind of close out on is Chris's approach to having a system. They weren't, even before, sounds like sending out PDFs and just hoping for the best. They weren't able to get as much analytics and information and engagement. But the teams who win, and Chris wants to win, are the ones who have a system and a strategy around what they're doing. And it's not... micro apps, like I said, are not a substitute for that conversation. They are just built in to this kind of cadence that you need in your buyer cycle. Here's the recap of today, right? Chris showed us that distribution strategy and analytics aren't just nice to haves. They're a competitive advantage. Tile gives you multiple distribution options: presentation mode, link sharing, email integration, website, embedding, platform integrations. That's more than 3, but that's what we hit on, right? And I'm going to keep hitting on the strategies and just pick one, right? It's use the right one for the right solution and the right situation and your goals. Again, it's not for you. The presentation is about you, but it's for them. And then ultimately, analytics as just in a general rule, regardless of tiled, create a feedback loop. And every micro app you send teaches you what to build next, if you let it. So let that information guide you as you build different iterations, as you test what works. Not have to do it full A/B testing, but as you saw in Chris's micro apps, hopefully we show both. One for one situation, one for another, had different approaches. Even just the menu, slight tweak for a totally different audience made sense for them.
Your content is only as good as your distribution strategy. So build great content.
You're already doing that.
And then get strategic about how it gets in front of people.
I think this is the final episode for this year.
Oh,
let's see where this goes. What's next? We've gotten a lot of feedback from the people watching. I think what we want next is, what do you want to cover? We've gone through the big 4 now. Builder 2.0, Figma, workflow, PowerPoint workflow, and now distribution. Those are big heavy hitters, but I think there's a lot more to discuss. And we want to hear from you all. 1, do you have micro apps that you want to share? We'd love that. Please text me directly. We will get that out. What about you, Sean? What do you think?
I mean, I think there's Chris showed us what he's doing and how their team's approaching it. Seeing examples, I feel like always helps get people's wheels turning. So we'll hopefully get some new examples, some new customers talking about what they're doing, but also getting into some of those tangible, like, how do you do it, right? Ooh, that's very cool. How'd you do that with 2 carousels on top of each other? How'd you do that with the scroll within a scroll, right? So some of those kind of best practices and really creative advantages, digging in on some of the capabilities front.
Yeah, it sounds like you just pitched us for like an advanced workshop.
Maybe
Is that what we're doing in January?
You tell me.
Well, by the time this episode airs, I will be out. It is my pup's birthday, and
Let's
I
go.
take that very seriously.
Shout out Graham.
Shout out Graham. He is the unofficial child mascot. We're going to put a picture of him right here. And Truman is there with you. He's this other unofficial mascot. Swagged out.
Happy birthday to you.
Tile tapped in. So I won't be here. So Sean's going to do the launch. Let's do it.
We're launched. Thank you for all launching with us.
Thank you. How old is Truman these days?
Truman's 9.5. Truman's about to be double digits here in May.
Wow. Graham's turning 11. We call it Grammy Day.
Grammy Day. Happy Grammy Day, everybody.
If you heard earlier, Sean's son's name is Graham, so we share that in common.
Let's
Did
go.
we just become best friends?
I think so.
I think you were just in Catalina too. That's hilarious.
John Stamos.
All right. That's it for episode 4. Tap in.
Your work is ready.
We'll see
Thanks
you
for
in
tapping in.
2026.
Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas. Happy
And-
Hanukkah. Now we're on a tangent.
All the things.
Kwanzaa.
Kwanzaa. Let's go.
I think that's the heavy hitters. Happy holiday to whatever you celebrate and however you do.
We're thankful for y'all.
See
See you
ya.
next year.